something like 85% of all the neural connections you will ever have are by the time are formed by the time you're age like 6 or 7.
What about people who have a hard time with memorization? Because I'm one of those people. I mean, I don't know, maybe you've done the research on this. Obviously kids are like sponges, and it's why, there's that foundation phase of their childhood,
right?
And where they can memorize stuff without understanding it, because at 4 and 5 years old, they don't need to understand everything that they memorize, but they can absorb it. They can just soak that into their brains. It's remarkable to me. But as an adult, like I've never trained my brain, as Lee Borton says, train the brain to retain.
Absolutely.
I've never trained my brain to retain, and I have a really, really hard time with memorization still. And so it's always shocking to me when we've memorized scripture as a family, and my girls, at 4 and 5 years old,
they can do it.
They can say entire chapters of Psalms and Proverbs and various parts of scripture. And I'm like, I got like the first 3 verses, and they can rattle off the whole thing. And it's just amazing. So talk to the person, and not just the adult, but the person who, maybe adult or child, who has a hard time with memorization.
Absolutely. So kind of in general, memorization is easier for younger kids. It is true. And it's in general. Obviously, there's gonna be exceptions to the rule.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's the way God designed us. But if you think about, like, a child has to absorb a huge amount of specifically language, right? I mean, you talk about a kid that, what is it, 18 months or something, maybe they start saying mama. It's been a while since I've had little kids. So if I got the age wrong,
You're about to do this again.
I'm about to have it again. Yeah. So anyway, but they say mom, and then they say mama, 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 they're saying it over and over again. And you're like, are they ever going to get another one? And then suddenly they start saying another word. Right. And Andrew Pudewa talks about this. This is one of the things that he talked about too. And apparently for him, the second word for his oldest was Coco, the dog down the street. It wasn't Dada. He had to deal with that. But anyway, but then they get another word, and then they get another one, and then it starts coming faster and faster and faster, right? But they have to absorb that. And every human being has that to some capacity. Clearly, there are people who are brain injured and have, there's issues where that can happen. But the vast majority, that's exactly what happens. And so I think that's probably why God gave that ability to these kids. They have an extremely elastic brain. They also have, I guess, like something like 85% of all the neural connections you will ever have are by the time are formed by the time you're age like 6 or 7.
Wow.
And so, we still do grow. Like our brains still do develop. They still do have, I think, something like 300 neurons a day.
Wow.
That you're actually producing.
Amazing.
Yeah. Which is really incredible. Of course, that's like a super, super tiny amount of,
Yeah.
But it is, if it's true, you actually have these neurons, being built in your brain all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just, you have so many of them when you're little. There's a lot to learn. It's a big world. It's a big, wonderful world that God made, and you've got to be able to absorb it. But you came out, you came out as a little baby, and you got to grow that brain and that head. And I think that's the reason why they have such a capacity to take in information that way. And that's one really interesting point, is that, little kids don't mind memorization. Like adults, we could get annoyed or, whatever with like seeing the same VeggieTales over and over again, or whatever. They don't. There's a comfort there, right? Just seeing the same thing over and over again. It's like, I know what's going to happen. There was some research actually done, Sesame Street. Sesame Street is actually research-based, the original stuff. I know that.
I believe that.
I don't even know some stuff
Don't watch
today.
it now.
I don't even, But the original stuff that they were actually doing a research-based. And one of the things that they did was they would show a certain sequence, like, I can't remember who it was. It was one of the Muppets. Anyway, it was a certain sequence of them doing a very specific, script. Okay. And they'd show that sequence on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. And then they wouldn't show it on Thursday. And then they would show it on Friday. And the kids would get up and cheer when they saw that. Okay.
Wow.
Because they're like, oh yeah,
we remember this?
So-and-so is doing, whatever.
Yeah.
And so they love that repetition. And it was even cause for celebration for them.
Yeah.
And so I know that doesn't answer the general question that you asked, but there is a kind of a reassurance that God did design kids to take that in. Now, what do we do about that when we're older? Right. What do we do about that? The good news is that there's actually tools that you can use.
Okay.
You can train your brain. It is actually a teachable, learnable skill. You mentioned Lee Borton's, and she called it trainable, right? And so there's other people who have talked a lot about this. If you really want to go deep, and we'll talk some more about tools maybe in a little bit. But if you really want to go deep, there's a book called Moonwalking with Einstein. If you want to go deep into, you know, what it means to have a well-trained mind that can memorize things very quickly. This is about people. It's like there's a competition, like a memory competition. It's like a modern thing, right? And this guy went and he joined this competition, and he was able to memorize 2 decks of cards that were shuffled together in 90 seconds.
Wow!
Like memorize it. Okay, and there's a way to do that. There's actually tools you can use, and those are not, and some of those are not readily apparent. So I guess that's kind of the good news, is that you may be like, oh man, just rote memorization is not working for me. Good news is there's actually other things you can do. So, but it is teachable. It is trainable. It's like when people learn an extra language, you know, they learn their second language. The third one is easier. Because the brain has been trained to make certain connections. And when you make those connections, the more you connect those neurons, because every time that you use a neuron, right? A neuron has like an axon that goes over and it has like this, it crosses this synapse with these dendrites, right?
Now we're doing a science lesson.
Oh, sorry. Yes. But it's sending the signal along that axon, and it crosses that little synapse. Anyway, every time it does that, it strengthens that connection, right? And if you do that enough, that connection actually becomes like permanent or semi-permanent, right? And so that's what's happening, is you're going over that. You're making those connections, you know, more and more permanent. The more connections you get in your brain, the higher your capacity to learn actually becomes. It actually increases. We know this more. Like we know this more now. And I'm not a brain scientist, but I'm just saying this is stuff like research in the last a few decades. But that the brain is actually capable of increasing its capacity for doing things like memory.
Homeschool Insights is sponsored by CTC Math. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com and try it for free. For more great homeschool inspiration and resources, listen to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.